Hi, my name is Jessica Knox, and this is my Module 3 video reflection. I just finished watching the lecture from Professor Wesh on the Classroom Tech website, and I thought a lot of what he had to say was very interesting and things that we're really starting to notice now that may not have been. I think the lecture was in 2008, so it was newer information and ideas then than now. I think now a lot of the video was about how the internet is impacting our social interaction with people around us, since it's removing the face-to-face interaction. A couple things he mentioned that a lot of people are noticing now are, the anonymity behind the computer. So he posted some comments and shared some that people said that I know I wouldn't say to somebody's face, but behind the computer, you can be a little bit more honest, I guess, or a little bit more blunt and less kind. But I did think it was interesting that he still said that, we want to connect with people, even though we want the technology, there's still the desire there for us to have those face-to-face connections and relationships. So I think a lot of the messages he had are really important for us to think about, and especially to pass on to our students, to kind of coach them and teach them how to use the technology in an appropriate way. I listened to a podcast, and I can't remember her name, and it was about surrounding yourself with positive teachers, because I can't remember what it was titled, but just keeping yourself from getting sucked into the negativity that can consume you as a teacher, that you're just so focused on all the things that went wrong and all the little hiccups in your day that it just kind of consumes you and brings you down to this nasty level of negativity. So there were a lot of tips on there about how to stay positive and how to surround yourself and seek out the positive people in the staff room, or just avoid it altogether if you can't find anybody to be around that's going to help uplift you or help you be a better teacher. So that was an interesting podcast. In the classroom, I think there are definite uses for things like podcasting and blogging. I think podcasting would be a cool way to let your students find some information on topics, or, you could go ahead and find the podcast that you want them to listen to kind of take out the risk of them stumbling upon something inappropriate. But I always like to give my students the opportunity to listen to somebody else, because they hear our voice or my voice every day, all year. And so whenever I can find a recording of something that we might read, or the Scholastic News has a feature where it will read to them, I try and do things like that just to mix it up so it's not the same voice over and over and over. But I also, try to keep a balance, that they're not always listening to things like that. But I think podcasts would be interesting because it would give them some time on technology, which they love to do that. And it would be a different person delivering the information and the message besides the teacher. So if you could find podcasts on, some topics you're studying, that would be a cool way to incorporate that. On the flip side, you could have your students create a podcast when you're learning about, maybe some things, history or science. They could write the script, and that could be a really well-rounded activity, because you'd have some writing involved, some editing, and then some public speaking, and then you would incorporate the subject that they're talking about. So I think creating a podcast would be really good for some of your older kids, and even lower grades. You could probably adapt it to them. And then, kind of the same thing, blogging would be a good way for them to, as they read a chapter, just write a little blog post about 2 things that you learned, or 2 takeaways. So blogging could be a really interactive way for them to kind of be held accountable for what they're reading. I know that the upper grades at the school I work at are really struggling with our reading logs. the kids are just writing stuff down and maybe not doing the reading or doing the assignments. So that could be a cool way if they created a blog at school and had to blog about what they read for their reading log. So that could be a cool way to use blogs in the classroom too. As far as Facebook and Twitter and YouTube and Instagram in a classroom, I'm not really a fan of the idea because I think a lot of our kids get enough of those types of applications or programs, whatever, outside of the classroom. I think they're on them constantly. So encouraging the use of those in the classroom, I think it's a cool way to change things up besides traditional paper or pencil. But I also think there are other ways that we could use technology that's not going to be using Facebook and Twitter, which they're already using after school. And I also think you could get into some dangerous waters if you are not able to supervise your students very carefully. I think that they could make choices that probably wouldn't be the best on Facebook or Twitter. YouTube, I could see kind of how we're using it. Maybe it would be used a little bit more easily in a classroom. I went ahead for the bookmarking tool and checked out to see if Google had one because I use Google a lot for backing up like photos and things like that. And they did, and it was super easy to set up. And so I went ahead and did the Google bookmarking tool, and I think it'll be really nice to have because a lot of times what I'll do on my phone is just screenshot things that I like. And then I have to go back through all my photos to find either like a recipe or something, which I could easily use Pinterest for, but sometimes my go-to is just to take a screenshot. So now hopefully I'll use that Google bookmarking tool to keep track of all the things that I like.